Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley. And today we're going to talk about the recent shift that we made. And I know Rachel spoke about this in a podcast on Monday. So I just want to go over kind of the experiences I've had. And we saw some interesting things show up in Ellie's reality. So if you haven't listened to that podcast already, I'd recommend going back and just listening to that. At the beginning of the year, or maybe the end of last year, Rachel mentioned that throughout this year of 2024, we are going to be bouncing between different dimensions, basically choosing old Earth, choosing new Earth, old Earth. Obviously, there's a lot of things that influence that. There's galactic cosmic energies that are coming in. We've got the solar flares. We got our own wounding, our own programming, our own free will choice of what we're choosing. There's all these things which influence that. And it's been an interesting journey this last year, kind of navigating. I've had moments throughout the year where I've really felt like, oh man, I'm really trapped in my own suffering right now. And obviously you work through it, you do the work. And then there are moments that, my head's been above the clouds and like, oh wow, like this is it. This is where we're heading. And so this year, Rachel said this in a podcast, and you can go back and listen to her predictions for 2024. It's all on the podcast. You can go back. And what she said was at the end of the year, there's going to be more of a solidification of the timeline that you're choosing and the Earth that you're choosing. And I have massively experienced this for the last, I would say, like 4 months. I've been experiencing so much stuff with my gut, and I've been experiencing entities feeding on those wounds where I'll get unconscious eating, I'll get a little out of control. And since we made this shift at the beginning of December, the energy that's behind like those programs running and me slipping into a consciousness is drastically different. And I've not shared this with you yet, Elle, but when I would fall into these moments of unconsciousness and I would start to eat, and it's to suppress the powerlessness that has been surfacing all this year, that like a really deep wound, I would see after I'd done this eating, oh no, I just did it. I fell into the unconscious thing again. I would see like the energy in the room. I would see like the entity. It's not like a thing or a person. I would just see energy moving, and intuitively I would know, oh yeah, it's right. After I ate, I just allowed that thing to like feed on the programs that I've just created, feed on all the powerlessness and the shame. And since that shift, I haven't seen it, I haven't felt it. And what it feels like to me now is I now have way less interference externally to allow me to actually heal what the deeper stuff that was going on. And the analogy, I was talking to Rachel about this, the analogy that made sense to me was, it was like I was in water trying to get dry, and it was so difficult to get dry because I was in water, versus getting out of the water and then drying myself off. It's like, oh, I can finally get dry, but surrounded by all of the things that are happening in the old world, all of the entities, all of the energy, everything that I was feeling. And I think this was another part collectively, because the old world and new earth, they were so enmeshed or entangled or existing together. It was like I was still in it. I was in the soup, and what I felt from after this shift is I'm not in that soup anymore. I still have my programs and wounds that I'm going into, but I don't feel all of this like external influence. It feels very, very different. I'm still going, and now I'm going deeper into my own wounding and my own programming because I just feel like there's more space to do that. I'm not being overwhelmed with feeling everything else that's out there. And this is something that Rachel shared. By the end of this year, you're going to choose vibrationally. This is not like okay, I'm going to consciously choose to be on the new earth. It's where is your frequency at? Is your frequency at a place where you are, at vibratory match with the new earth? That's how you get there. It's not by thinking I'm going to get there. That might be part of it, but it's about actually vibrationally and energetic level becoming that being of the new earth. And since we made this shift, I'm like, oh man, like I feel in a very, very, very different place. It doesn't feel like, heaven on earth. I'm not saying it feels like that. Just to me, what I feel is it's way, way, way clearer. And I still have my stuff that I'm going into that has been being activated, and I've had many layers of this that I've been going into this whole year. But now I'm able to dry myself off and actually see, oh, this is what's going on. Now it can go in a little deeper and get to the root, because it just felt like I was being overwhelmed with all this extra energy that I had to process. And it was very confusing. I couldn't quite understand what it was I was experiencing. Hindsight, obviously, right now, I'm like, that's why. It's because there was so much going on in the old earth.
Yeah, I'm actually experiencing the opposite. It's been even more intense with me with the food thing. It's like even harsher and more crazier than before. And yeah, it's definitely a mountain I have not conquered at all. And I hope soon to get to where you are at, because it's been really brutal on my gut. Um Yeah, I just feel like energetically there's been so much. I'm sure a lot of you guys feel this, but like physically, oh my God. Like I'm barely speaking to you guys right now. I've just been so exhausted. I don't sleep at night. And then on top of that, I think a way for me to still get through the day is the eating thing, which is like destroying my gut. Like my gut is like on a new level of pain. So there's all of that, but that makes a lot of sense as to what you're saying. And I feel like maybe for me, what I feel like it's coming in more hardcore for me to like wake up to it even more and like take more responsibility for it. Um, so yeah, it's something I'm working through, but that makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
And just a thought, this is going off, the psychic readings that we've had recently or this year. For you, it might be that entity, the entities that were feeding on me, you might be like, on a frequency level, like way too high for them to even mess with. So it might not, because that came up in the reading, right? She said that when you were young, like all these things were trying to get in, but they couldn't, kind of thing. That's correct, right?
Yeah. Like they would try. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just might be where you're at. And again, this is just my own interpretation of what you just shared, is those things all year, they can't mess with you, so to speak. You're too powerful for that. Not me. I'm still working through my stuff there. They feed on particular wounds and particular programs, and that becomes their fuel, and that's their entryway into you, among many other things, psychedelics and just where your own consciousness is at, alcohol, even caffeine I've found as well, any drug. But again, that's playing on a wound underneath that. So it just might be that you were at a place where none of that could influence you, and in this new dimensional shift, all of that stuff that's in there, now it's being brought to the surface even more, because, and this is like where we're going in the new earth, in this new dimension, you can't have those all of that pain, that trauma that's in there. It's like it's being squeezed out to the surface, because it has to, of where you're choosing on an energetic level to go.
Yeah, it hasn't been fun. And I'm really aware of that. And I think that there's been definitely, I think there's so many other, and this is no excuse. Like that's completely my responsibility to be able to tackle all that. But there's just been a lot of other layers to like not only the gut pain, but like the physical exhaust. There's so many layers to all of this stuff. But yeah, I do feel like it's coming like 3 times as crazy because it's like this has to go, Ellie. Like this has to go. And so today I'm fasting. And for me, like that's a big deal because I just been avoiding the guidance to not fast. And so I'm going to be fasting until tomorrow afternoon. So I'm happy about that. And I can feel my body's like thanking me for it. And it's just a matter of just listen and stop with the goddamn programs, like showing up like a little child, literally, and like throwing a tantrum. And so, yeah, I completely make sense what you're saying. And I love that for you. And I think it's wonderful because I know that's been quite the journey with the food thing. And I'm sure a lot of people out there can relate. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that any of that's gone away. It's
Yeah.
just I can feel there's a difference now. I feel like I have more conscious choice over what it is that I'm choosing, even when I'm not choosing something consciously. It doesn't feel. I feel less out of control, and I
Hmm.
can feel that it's because there isn't an extra energy that's working through me. It's just my inner child making those choices.
Yeah.
So, but you've had a big shift show up in your reality, correct?
Yeah, the day that we had the shift, basically long story short, I've spent most of my career, being on camera and being a part of Hollywood and all these things. And I've had this one gig for the last 3 years that has financially sustained me. I've gotten to shoot it from home, and it's just been a very consistent job that I've had. And I knew that one day this job was going to go just because of where I'm headed and what I'm actually meant to do in this life. Like, I can't there's no way vibrationally that like this was ever going to stay a match for me. And like over the past 3 years it's been a very very interesting trajectory of first entering this gig, being very dumb and blind to, the things that we were talking about and like not thinking anything of it because it was my life for so long, till eventually just seeing through all of the illusions of this particular gig and what we're talking about and why none of it matters and such third world stuff. But I've learned over time that this job was really necessary for me financially as I build my new career. And so I got to a place where I was very detached from it, but I showed up and I did my thing every week. And I really fully, enjoyed it while I was there. And and over the 3 years too, if there's one thing that I could share with you guys, when you have any kind of career in entertainment, you never know when your job's going to go. It could be there for a month, it could be there for a year, it could be there for 6 months. Like you're always like getting hired for jobs and then getting fired. Like that's just the nature of everything. And so over the past 3 years I've had many times where I thought that this job was going to go. Like they fired a bunch of people, it was going to make a new turn, a new shift, a new look, all of these things. And so over the past 3 years I've had to move through a lot of what that triggers in me, the scarcity and the lack and like, what am I going to do without this job? Like this job was so easy and it was so simple and I didn't have to do much and it only required like 2 hours a week and it paid for my rent and it paid for my bills and it was awesome. Right. And so every time I thought the show was going to go away, it would trigger all of this stuff. And then I just kept working through it. And then the day of the shift, which was last week, I believe it was last Monday.
Yeah.
Anyways, I got an email basically saying that the show is not going to be continuing the way that it's going to be continuing. Basically, we're only going to be shooting at very special times of the year, which to me sounded like once or twice a year, right? And even that, like, who knows if it's going to really happen. And I knew when I read the email, I was like, oh, this is the end of this chapter. And I really made sure to like feel, okay, what's getting activated right now. And I was running no programs. It was just this, I'm just at this point where I just understand and see that all of these experiences, whatever is being taken away, whatever's being added, whatever, it's all there because it's meant to. And so I knew that this job was now leaving my quarters, right? It was being left behind because now vibrationally I've shifted, and where I'm headed, this job cannot come with me. It just cannot. It's like it has to go. It has to fade away. And so I was just in really huge surrender with it and gratitude for what it's provided me. And also knowing like, oh, it's making space for what's actually meant to come in that is much far greater than this. And actually aligned with what I'm meant to do. And so that was really, really big. And it's exciting. I'm really excited. And the fact that there were no scarcity and lack programs that got activated was also really fun because those programs suck and nobody likes to feel those. And so the fact that I've moved through and worked through a lot of it and it didn't show up in this way was awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool to see you just process it in it was like very easy.
Yeah.
You obviously, there's a few moments that you were like, wow, it's done, which
Yeah.
is obviously very normal, like
Mhm.
but when we were hanging out that day and we were talking about it, you didn't seem like you were getting crazy in your mind. Felt very grounded and very at peace with the fact that this huge major like shift was happening in your life. Like that is no small thing.
Mhm.
Like that's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge to go from like your entire career of being in this direction and then have this one final thing which is also providing you the financial stability and
Yeah.
security, and then to have that just one day kind of fall away
Mhm.
and you not spiral in any kind of way. It's awesome.
I mean, it's this, right? It's what I'm learning. And trust me, I'm sure if there are other experiences that will come that will rattle me, it'll just help me to go into what needs to be gone into. But you understand that if you just simply flow with the universe, right? We cause so much suffering for ourselves because we work against the universe. Because, our mind gets in, our programs get in. If we just flow with the universe and we just accept and surrender to the experiences that are coming our way and we just work through what it brings up, we will literally be flowing. And flow is not something that I know or I'm used to, but it's something that I'm learning. And so, me sitting here crying about this, emailing them, being like, what can we do to that's me going against the grain. That's me going, I don't trust what's happening right now. So let me go in and woman handle everything that I need to so that I feel safe and secure. Instead of everything that's happening is showing me that I'm creating safety and security within me, knowing that, and this is not some bypass bullshit of like, I just trust the universe. It's like, no, I do the work. And in doing the work, I can see that trusting in the universe is trusting in myself because I am the universe.
It's beautiful you mentioned that, because I've spent time with in years past some friends that I made along the way, who were very like on a path, not the path that we're walking right now, but on a path. And I actually picked up some programs of like false. It wasn't trust
Yeah.
because it energetically it wasn't connected. It wasn't
Mhm.
grounded. It wasn't coming on an energetic level from the way of trust. I can feel that now. It was coming from this like very childish, like, oh, everything will be okay.
Mhm.
Like, and I picked up on that, and then I was like, oh, that's a much better place to live than in survival. But then that swinging the pendulum to the other side of like
Mhm.
having blind faith and not actually taking any accountability and
Yep.
responsibility. And so yeah, I've swung that pendulum to the other way, and it's very different from what you speak of as like no, actually like becoming the way of trust and actually, I'm not running any programs. I'm not doing this as a bypass. I'm not doing this to avoid. I'm just in surrender and I trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such an easier way to live. You know, we just have to constantly remember that every single experience that's handed to us, it's there for us to move through what we have to move through and then just allow what is to be. Like we create so much suffering and friction because we just keep not wanting to. The resistance is so insane. The control is so insane. It's like the frequencies of resistance and control are painful, right? They are painful. And it's like, why do we create that and we allow that to run over it? It's like actually silly. So like there are these moments where I look at programs and I'm like, oh my God. And then it's like, what am I doing right now? But it's obviously we've been, programmed to run these programs. But yeah, I hope for anybody out there when you're listening to this and as you're experiencing an experience, like why don't you choose what you've never done before, which is go into whatever's getting activated, literally sit here and start identifying the programs, like list them off, write them down. And then what do those programs and those frequencies need? Right? One question that we always ask ourselves at MSU is, which way of oneness is missing in this scenario? And for me, when this job came about, it was this, oh, okay, if I resist all of this right now, I'm not in surrender. And if I'm not in surrender, I ain't shit. Right? So it was beautiful. And it just allowed me to just not create any suffering for myself. And I was very grounded and I was excited because I know that there are so many. Listen, we're infinite beings. Like the universe is abundant and infinite. And we're so small in our level of consciousness and so low. And we run all of these horrendous low frequency programs. And we sit here and we go, oh, it's never gonna come and it's never gonna happen. And what if and it's like, guys, what can come when you keep surrendering and when you become who you really are? That's when everything that you can't even imagine can start showing up, because you are becoming what the universe is, because you are the universe.
Oh, bit of wisdom.
Yeah.
And what did you feel initially? Was it an email or a text?
Yeah, it was an email.
What did you feel initially when the email came through? What was it like, your initial reaction or response?
Yeah, first I read, I'm like, oh, here we go. And we had a group chat going of all the people that I do this show with, and everyone simultaneously was like, did you see the email? Right? And everybody was really cool about it. The one thing they collectively all said across the board was like, guys, we were lucky to have this show for as long as we did, because this is unheard of. Like, this is unheard of to have a show under my belt for 3 years. I've never been a part of something this long.
Yeah.
And so I just knew that it was such a gift for me, as it came to my life when I decided that, and I knew that I wasn't meant to be a part of the world of entertainment, which I had been working towards for 15 years, was building a name for myself. It came to me when I realized all of this has to die. And so the fact that while this transition was happening for me to actually be in this career of being a coach and understanding that my soul came here on a way bigger mission than me talking about celebrities on camera, it helped me financially stay afloat as I made this shift. And for that, I am eternally grateful, even though the stuff that I was talking about makes me want to drown. But it's helped me so much. And for that, I'm in forever gratitude for it. I see it as such a gift. And I just honor the experience for all that it was. It helped me work through a lot of stuff. It's a very interesting experience to be a part of the old world, right? And then to be moving out of the old world, but then to still have to show up in the old world with people that you used to, what you used to be. And that allowed me to see where I was running judgment, where I was running superiority, where I was hating on people, like all of these things. And so the many layers of what this beautiful gig provided me was chef's kiss. And so I'm just so excited as this goes, what's coming new, because holy shit, these next few years, even this next year alone, is going to be packed with so much beauty. And I'm sure challenges, but the challenges are beautiful. So yeah.
It's really cool. Like, popping into the old earth just for a little bit.
Yeah.
Once a week you would show up, and then it changed to, less than that, like once a month. You would pop in and, without getting, massively descriptive about the work, but it was pretty 3D, right?
Yeah, it was pretty 3D. It was 3D. It is the third dimension.
It is the third dimension, like, without a shadow of a doubt. And then to have the responsibility and the humility and to still show up to something like that. This is something, I've struggled with. I know I spoke about this in many podcasts about bartending, but you start this work and you're like, oh my God, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, this is way deeper. This means something. But then we're at a place where, not all of that can completely support you right now. And so what we have to do, just living in this reality, is do things to make ends meet. Like, that's part of being a in the world human being, responsible adult. Is, oh yeah, we've still got to put food on the table, we've still got to pay our bills, we've got to, feed our pets or our kids or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that requires us to do sometimes things that might not feel like, oh, this is my highest path, this is my, my soul's deepest calling. But what a beautiful gift. And it's so cool that this particular, work for you opened up. It was almost like this like transition period of like, okay, well, you're choosing to leave this reality,
Mhm.
but you still have to do something to be able to, get through the next few years. And here's this amazing opportunity that doesn't take up so much of your time.
Mhm.
And it would be so easy for you, way back then, to be like, no, I'm going to do this. This is what I did. No, I'm going to do this new thing. And I went too far in the other extreme. And now I'm, back in balance, what feels like more balance
Yeah.
now. And that just probably just created so much balance in your life as you move through this transition of leaving that world.
Mhm.
And because if we just, it's like anything in life, if we just jump from one place to another, it can be extremely jarring and
Mhm.
things don't always work out. It's like normally the process of transformation is somewhat gradual.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've moved through that chapter too, where I was like, oh, I'll relinquish all of this because I'm meant to do this, and then I got totally effed, and that was a huge lesson for me of like, it doesn't work like that. That's not how this works. And so, even with this gig, there were moments in the 3 years where every time after I would shoot the episode, I would come out storming. I'd be like, "This is so stupid," and I was so angry that, like, I was talking about this stuff, and then I worked through all of that, and then I got to this place where I was like, I would come out of the room after shooting an episode, and I was just cool because it is what it is, and it was what it was, and the third world is what it is, and where I'm going is another thing, and that's okay, and I can still show up in that way without engaging in anything that is harmful or anything that is dark or anything that is evil, right? I can just do what I'm meant to do and walk away and completely be detached. And the detachment too is the key, because before I wasn't detached. I was so attached to what I was doing and it was causing all of this stuff. And now I was like, no, I'm just completely detached. I show up, I do my thing, I'm not causing harm, and then I pop out and then I'm back on living my life, ascending and elevating. And yeah, it's a very interesting experience. I'm sure so many of you guys can relate to what that feels like. It's a very, 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 very fascinating, gnarly, wild, crazy experience to be of the old world and then to be leaving it, and what that looks like and what that entails and what that feels like.
Yeah. And so maybe you've gone through a little shift. And if you have, feel free to drop a comment below. And like,
Please.
we'd love to hear about it. But yeah, it seems like the old world is more solidifying. I even had this experience the other day at work where I had I work at a restaurant, and someone came in and had this crazy interaction with me where I was being super lovely and set a firm boundary and told the person, hey, you can't do this, you can't just grab food, and walk out with it. You have to check in with a staff member. And he lost it, like lost his shit, and snatched the food out of my hand and stormed off like a little child. And as I'm having this experience, I'm like, at the same time as I was in like shock and like what the hell, I was like, this is the old world.
Mm,
This is what I mean, he's choosing it right now. I could see it very like
yeah.
clear as day. He is choosing the old world. And it is very interesting to run into interactions where you have people that are so clearly trapped in that reality.
Mm,
And then, as Rachel said in her podcast, like right now things are more blended and they will continue to be blended until, I think she was sharing, like 2032, as these dimensions shift more. So we are still going to see these things, these interactions between old earth and new earth. It's still going to happen. It's not like we're completely isolated. But I really do feel like there was a shift. I really have experienced that.
mm,
And I look forward to just having more of these shifts and continuing down this path. it does feel, what I'm experiencing is it feels way better where I'm at right now, energetically. I just don't feel as much, interference, influence from that, even though I'm still seeing it in my physical reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely feels much clearer. So, and just a reminder that, this choice, this is something that I sit with all the time, like this choice to be on the new earth and what that means. You don't have to get into your mind about it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's if you're choosing it, you're doing the work on yourselves. That's it.
Yeah,
And
just
you're
do the
going to
work.
feel these shifts.
Yeah.
If you don't choose to do the work on yourself, you're going to end up in a place that you probably don't want to be, but you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you weren't choosing that. So if you want some guidance coming into 2025, we are having all these amazing classes, which are like, some foundational courses were made the same, but we have some new classes that we're offering. We're enrolling students in January for our January semester for the whole year. So if you're interested in learning more about what that is, we have free student enrollment meetings every week. So feel free, just click on student enrollment on the website. You're able to sign up and join one of those meetings and just learn more. And I couldn't recommend everyone enough learning this work. But even if whatever work you're doing, if you're doing it to raise your vibrational frequency, that's what helps the planet at this time. And anything else to add, Al?
Nope, just visit masterofselfuniversity.com and we will see you guys in the spring semester.
See you there.
Bye.